I want to show you something. Look at this. This is an old RBI vision document. Nothing unusual, but look at the year. This vision document was actually published in July of 2009. Now let me show you something. If you flip to the second last page, there is a section called New Projects / Major Initiatives. And if you read right at the bottom, see Mobile Payments Settlement Network. Read the next line. Facilitate real-time transfer of funds. Build a national infrastructure for mobile payments. Wait, this was 2009. Most Indians still carried cash. Smartphones were a luxury. Mobile internet was painfully slow in the country. Do you remember the iPhone 3GS? iPhone 3GS had become the first iPhone to launch officially in India in 2009. Yet somehow, RBI was already planning an infrastructure that sounds very much similar to UPI. And that's not all. Just 2 bullet points above in this vision document, you will find another project. It's simply called India Card here. This would actually later become the RuPay payment network. Somehow, years before the India's digital payments revolution began, RBI had already drawn this blueprint. Fast forward to today, every single day, Indians make more than 76 crore UPI transactions. Roughly 1 out of every 2 real-time digital payments in the world now happen through UPI. Think about what happens every time you scan a QR code. Your payment has to be authenticated, routed, cleared, settled. Money has to move securely between banks, all in just a few seconds. Yet, you don't pay a single rupee for this transaction. So the question is, who pays for all of this? In fact, the RBI governor has openly warned that UPI cannot remain free forever. So how is UPI doing what Visa and MasterCard have spent decades building? And if the system is free today, the question is, can it actually stay free forever? Welcome to this episode of The Second Layer. To answer this, we first need to understand the business model of Visa and MasterCard. Both Visa and MasterCard, they don't seem to issue any cards. They just seem to stamp their logo on every one of them. So what exactly are they charging for? Imagine you buy a 100 rupees burger at McDonald's using your SBI credit card. Now you would expect McDonald's to receive 100 rupees, right? But that doesn't happen. McDonald's receives only 97 rupees. So where did the 3 rupees go? That 3 rupees is called the merchant discount rate or MDR. Part of it goes to the SBI for issuing the card, part goes to the merchant's bank for accepting the payment, and the remaining part goes to Visa or MasterCard for operating the network over which this payment traveled. Now, 3 rupees doesn't sound like much until you realize Visa processed over 311 billion transactions last year. MasterCard processed another 204 billion transactions last year. Suddenly, charging just a tiny fee on every payment becomes one of the most profitable business models ever created. That's why investors often call them forever stocks. As long as people will keep spending money, Visa and MasterCard will keep on growing. The problem is this model works beautifully in New York, but it doesn't work in India. Imagine you are selling a 10 rupee pen or 20 rupee tea on a roadside stall. Giving away every few rupees on every payment destroys your profit. And before you even process your first payment, you have to buy an expensive point of sale or POS machine. That's why millions of small merchants simply stayed with cash. Cash is basically cheaper. Now, do you remember the 2009 vision document? See, RBI had already realized this. India simply cannot copy the Western model. Otherwise, digital payments would remain limited to malls, airports, and large retail stores. And there was one more concern. At the time, every single digital payment in India depended on foreign payment networks of Visa and MasterCard. This meant one of the country's most important financial infrastructures wasn't actually controlled by India. So RBI wanted to build something different. In 2008, RBI and the Indian Banks Association created the National Payments Corporation of India or NPCI. Unlike Visa and MasterCard, NPCI was structured as a non-profit company. This single decision would actually change everything in future. In April 2016, NPI quietly launched the Unified Payments Interface or the UPI. Initially, sending money between individuals was free, but if you paid a merchant or a shopkeeper, the merchant would still have to pay 0.3% as MDR. Which makes sense. Someone has to pay for the infrastructure. And think about this, UPI was still charging only 0.3% versus 2% of the normal debit and credit cards charged. But for small businesses in India, this 0.3% was still a deal breaker. Shopkeepers still preferred cash over UPI. Then, in 2018, government did something almost no other country had attempted. It first said it would reimburse the MDR for smaller transactions less than 2000 rupees, but then in January 2020, it completely removed MDR on merchants. Suddenly, UPI payments became completely free. And now the UPI adoption by shopkeepers completely exploded. In fact, if you see the number of transactions that UPI was processing every year, this number picks up after 2020 because here government banned MDR and then it has compounded at a great rate since then. But the fact of the matter is, processing billions of transactions is not free. So the question is, who is paying for it? In June 2026 alone, UPI processed 22.7 billion transactions. That's around 757 million or 75 crore payments every single day, or over 8,700 transactions processed every second. 8,700 transactions every second. Today in India, 85.5% of all transactions are done on UPI, while only 2.6% happen on some kind of credit cards. But do you know what is the surprising part? The surprising part is this. While on average, monthly spend on UPI is around 5,500 rupees, on a normal credit card, it is 15,000 rupees per month. And on Amex, it is 3 times around 40,000 rupees per month. People are using UPI for day-to-day spends, but large purchases are still done using credit cards. There is an even more interesting insight if you look at the average ticket sale of UPI year over year. The average UPI transaction value has come down from 1700 rupees to 1300 rupees. And here, if you think this is a weakness of UPI, it is not. This is actually a strength of UPI. This is a sign that UPI is reaching places where credit cards or debit cards never did. Tea stalls, vegetable vendors, local kirana stores. The smaller the average payment becomes, the deeper UPI is penetrating into the Indian economy. This is exactly what RBI wanted. A payment network isn't successful because the rich use it. It is successful when someone buys a 30 rupees milk packet and pays using a digital mode instead of cash. India has built one of the world's most advanced payment infrastructures. But while our payment systems have become global class, investing globally still seems to be complicated. If you ever wanted to invest in companies, let's say Apple, Google, Amazon or Netflix, but didn't know where to start, let me introduce you to Dhan. On Dhan app, you can very easily select a stock, let's say like Netflix, click on buy. Here you can simply buy one stock or you can even buy fractional shares. Click on instant buy and the order is placed. But then there is something even better. Click on this tab, start a SIP, and here you can set monthly, weekly, daily SIPs in US stocks. And not just US stocks, you can use Dhan to even invest in US ETFs. Now, one of the biggest concerns around international investing is it compliant? Dhan uses the GIFT City route, which is fully compliant with RBI and FEMA regulations. They use India INX, which is India's own international exchange operating from GIFT City. Your overseas investments are made through a regulated framework. If you think about it, through Dhan, you can actually own a small part of companies whose products millions of us use every single day. If you would like to start your global investing journey, click the link in the description or simply scan this QR code. And now, let's get back to understanding how UPI actually works behind scenes. Now let's understand what exactly happens when you scan a QR code. Most people think that Google Pay transfers their money. It doesn't. In fact, Google Pay isn't even allowed to directly access the UPI network. Here is why. At the center of UPI network is the NPCI, the National Payment Corporation of India. Think of NPCI as an air traffic controller. It doesn't actually hold your money. Just as air traffic controller ensures each flight reaches the correct destination, NPCI ensures each payment request reaches the correct bank safely. The interesting part is that only licensed banks are allowed to connect to the NPCI's network. That's because only banks are legally allowed to debit or credit customers' accounts. Now, apps like Google Pay, PhonePe, or Cred, they don't move money. They simply provide the interface to access the UPI network. That's why they are called third-party application providers, or in short, TPAPs. Which also explains something most people never notice. Have you ever wondered why your UPI ID ends with these addresses while your bank account might be somewhere completely different? That's because these UPI apps need to partner with a bank to access the NPCI's network. For example, Google Pay partners with banks like Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, and SBI. That's also why if you use Google Pay for your transactions, your UPI ID usually ends with one of these bank handles regardless of your actual bank account. Now, if you understand all of this, let's follow one payment. Imagine you're buying something worth 1000 rupees. You are using Google Pay, your bank account is with Bank of India. The shopkeeper you're making payment to, he uses a HDFC bank account. The moment you tap Pay, Google Pay sends the payment request to one of its partner bank. That partner bank forwards it to NPCI. The first thing NPCI does is surprisingly simple. It checks whether your UPI ID actually exists. NPCI maintains a massive directory of UPI IDs in its memory. If your UPI ID doesn't exist, the transaction ends right there. If your UPI ID is valid, only then does your phone ask you for your UPI PIN. Once you enter the PIN, Google Pay encrypts it before sending it back. Now the encryption is designed in such a way that only your bank, which is Bank of India, can read it. Not Google Pay, not the partner bank, not even NPCI can read your PIN. As your payment request reaches the partner bank stamps one more important detail, which is which bank actually holds your account. After adding Bank of India, it forwards the request to NPCI. NPCI immediately recognizes that the request belongs to Bank of India, so it routes the request to Bank of India. Now, this is where the actual banking begins. Bank of India decrypts your PIN, verifies it is correct, checks whether you have 1000 rupees in your account, and if everything is valid, it adds -1000 to your account and sends an approval back to NPCI. But the payment isn't yet complete. NPCI now looks at the second half of the transaction. It knows the merchant's account belongs to HDFC Bank, so it forwards a credit request to the HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank now adds +1000 to the merchant's account and confirms the transaction back to NPCI. Now the transaction is complete. NPCI sends a success notification to both apps simultaneously. Now here is something fascinating. All of this, from you scanning the QR code to the shopkeeper receiving the money, takes less than 6 seconds. And India does this more than 76 crore times every single day. Keeping this running is not free. It requires 24/7 servers, round-the-clock engineers, and terabytes of internet bandwidth on a daily basis. So again, who is paying for all of this? The first answer is the Government of India. This is how much subsidy Government of India is giving each year. For 2026, the Government of India would be spending 2000 crore rupees of our tax money. This would be distributed between the banks and the third-party app providers. Now, here's the thing, 2000 crore rupees seems like a lot of money, but it only covers 11% of the total expenses. So where does the remaining 89% come from? That's where the story becomes fascinating. Let's talk about the banks first. Banks appear to be losing money on every UPI transaction. But now for a moment, think about what used to happen before UPI. People used to withdraw cash to pay for stuff or services. That cash left the banking system. Now when you use UPI to transfer money, the money actually rotates among various banks. Banks therefore have higher deposits with them. The actual term for this is CASA, which is current account and savings account. Banks pay you 3% on your savings account and 0% on your current account balances. Larger these deposits become, the more money banks can lend out as home loans, business loans and personal loans at a much higher rate of 10-12%, directly impacting and increasing bank revenues. But now what about TPAPs, the third-party application providers like Google Pay, Phone Pay or Paytm for that matter? They don't even have bank deposits. The answer is they're not monetizing the payment, they're monetizing the customer, which is you and me. Just PhonePe, Google Pay and Paytm together process 85% of all UPI transactions in the country. They collect vast amounts of transaction level data. They know how much you can spend, what kind of transactions you generally spend on, which city you spend in. This data is then used to give you personalized credit card offers or offer personal loans or offer insurance products. In 2025 alone, this was used to originate more than 1 lakh crore in loans or around $12.5 billion in loans. And then Paytm took this one step further by introducing sound boxes. This is a simple yet genius innovation. As soon as the payment completes, the sound box simply announces the confirmation of payment.
Received Paytm payment of 215 rupees.
Sound boxes are very much portable, they work on rechargeable battery, so they are very convenient. Most importantly, they have reduced the friction of payment between user and shopkeeper to essentially zero. Each box costs around 400 rupees to be installed, and then it costs just 60 rupees per month. Paytm alone has deployed over 13 million or 1.3 crore devices. This is 1,000 crores in subscription revenue every year. In fact, device rentals contributed to 18% of Paytm's entire revenue. This is absolutely crazy. The last thing that has changed the entire ecosystem is the RuPay credit card. Remember the RBI vision document of 2009? There they mentioned about Indian payment network. RuPay is exactly that. And RuPay today is going head to head with Visa and MasterCard. RuPay is the only credit card network today that is allowed to be linked to UPI. This means you can make the same UPI payment by scanning the QR code. Unlike Visa and MasterCard, there is no need of expensive POS machines. Today, 38% of all transactions happen on RuPay network only next to Visa. Just few years back, do you know this number was below 5%? This is a crazy growth. The advantage to banks is RuPay transactions, unlike UPI transactions, are not free. RuPay transactions generate merchant discount rate for bigger transactions, which becomes good revenue for both the bank and the third-party application provider. See, it's easy to look at UPI as just another payment app. But after making this video, I don't think this is what it is anymore. One QR code starts a chain reaction. A street shop gets to build a digital transactions history. This transaction history gets him a loan. This loan allows him to grow its business and employ more people. UPI is a masterclass in second order effects. The people who understand second order effects move ahead in life. Countries which understand second order effects gets to create a brighter future for its citizens. Maybe that is why the real innovation behind UPI, it was never the QR code. It was the decision to treat payments as a public infrastructure. I hope you like this video. If you do, share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to check out Dhan if you want to go on your global investing journey by clicking the link in the description or by scanning this QR code. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you.